So your 30s is a weird time. It is. And if you're in your 20s and you're watching this about coming into your 30s, it's just a weird time in life. Let's talk about it.
I think the reason being in your 30s feels so weird is because it's the age period where you are forced to confront your own mortality. Like there's no running from it anymore because you can start to physically see the age in your face. Every day you wake up in the mirror and you're just like, God, you are a corpse. A corpse. And are you actually a corpse? No, but you can see the corpse starting. Meanwhile, everybody around, your parents are getting old, your dog's getting old. You even hear people die in their 30s, and it's not as tragic as it used to be. Not that it's not tragic, but in your 20s, somebody dies and they go, oh my God, how could this ever happen? In your 30s, you hear somebody die and that people just go, well, it happens. And on top of that, you've been alive for over 30 years, so you see how fast time goes. Like I used to look at people in their 50s and go like, that's forever from now. Now I look at 50 and I'm like, oh, that's like tomorrow. Like that is as close to me as being 20 is from where I am today. And all the while, you start getting hit with old people ads, like getting hair plugs in Turkey, and you get closer and closer every day.
Yeah, so I mean, 30s is a weird time. Like for me, yeah, he said, you look like a corpse. I'll be honest with you. The thing that drives me wild, I'm getting a little personal here, is I cannot believe men in my 30s, I hope somebody agrees with me in the comment section on this, but the how fast my freaking ear hair grows. So it's like, what the hell? I just plucked this the other day, and I'm like, how is that a foot long already? It's insane. But no, seriously though, like there's just so much that's going on life-wise from, your kids are getting older if you have kids. I'm feeling myself get older. I still feel great, but like I know like I'm getting closer to that older age. I'm starting to have like young kids like, upper teens, lower 20s come up to me and ask me for advice on things, and it's just like it feels weird. Like I remember being that kid, which it felt like just a few years ago, and how fast time is already moving. And I'll say this, when I had kids, that makes time feel like it's going even faster. It's a really, really wild thing.
What would you tell somebody who's 35 today?
Worry less. Worry less. I worried like crazy when I was in my 30s, and I talked to a lot of people in their 30s, and they're all so stressed. I said the wrong thing in a meeting. Just don't worry so much. You're gonna be fine.
Guilty. I don't really get I guess I try not to get super personal on these videos. I don't know. I don't really know why. But I struggle with that big time. I struggle with stressed, worry. I mean, just I'm in bed sometimes looking up at the ceiling like, what the heck am I going to do? What am I doing with my life? I'm 34 years old. I'm about to turn 35 in March. And I'm like, what am I doing? Which I got stuff going on, but you still just feel like, am what I doing, is this the correct route for my life? And sometimes I want to turn everything off and go start a farm with my family. I mean, maybe that's the millennial thing to do right now, but sometimes I get that urge. It's a very, very weird feeling. I don't really know how to cope with it. I don't know how to say, I mean, she says, yeah, just worry less, which I try. But it's hard to do that when I know I got kids depending on me. I got my wife depending on me. We live in an economic time that's not the best for our age group. There's this just stress that's always on you, men and women. It's very weird.
If I was 32 again, I'd stop pretending I had time. Time is one of the most expensive things you'll ever spend, and nobody gives refunds. I wasted years thinking I'd get around to it later on. Later isn't guaranteed. You don't need motivation, you need urgency. Do the big thing today that you need to do in your life, the big thing for your dream, because one day you'll wake up and realize time already decided for you. Have a great day.
Now that's good advice. I will say, with having kids and stuff, I have noticed how fast time's going by, and I am trying to focus on that more. You go through your life and you think to yourself am I doing enough? Am I making the right decisions? Am I spending the quality time with the people that mean most to me? And I actually had a great lunch with a good friend of mine today, and that's what we talked about. We're both fathers. We're both in our 30s. That was kind of honestly the thought process of this video, because we talked the whole lunch about this and how weird your 30s are. And we are both very career and, growth focused, but we were also very family focused as well. And we struggle with this like mix up of like wanting to grow, wanting to work, wanting to grind, wanting to hustle, but also understanding the importance of the time with our family and our loved ones. And we have this like imbalance of like, how do we juggle the two? And neither one of us knew. We're still figuring it out. Oh, your 30s.
I don't know who needs to hear this, but at 39 years old, I've lived enough to know with absolute certainty that the greatest thing that a man can do is marry a kind, loving woman and build a family with her. Nothing even comes close. It's the true pinnacle of a meaningful life.
100% agree to that. 100% agree. The single-handedly best thing I've ever done in my life, the greatest decision I've ever made in my life was marrying my wife. Hands down. But I will say this, man, if you're watching this and maybe you're in your younger 20s and you're just wanting to see what the 30s are like, focus on finding that right woman. But you have to focus on it. Now, some of you men may not agree with me, but I think there is a time and place where you have to really focus on finding that right person. And it's hard nowadays. It is. I feel for you single men looking for that right partner right now. They're out there, but they're definitely harder to find. But if you can find one that you know is good, that you know is a good woman, that's going to take care of you, and you're going to help with each other as you grow this life together, hold on to her and do whatever you can to keep her. Because when I look on like my past that I've had, and I look towards my future on what I think my future self wants to look back on, and what I think I want my life to look like, it all stems around spending time with my wife and my kids. Now, obviously, yes, I want to be successful. I want my money to be correct. I want to do the right things. I want to make the right investments. I want to grow my net worth with my family so we can go and enjoy life how we want to. But ultimately, I look back and I'm like, I want to make sure I spent the right time with my loved ones. And not only my wife and kids. I'm talking my parents, my siblings, my friends. Relationships is what is most important in this life, and that's what I really, really have been trying to focus on more in my 30s versus when I was in my 20s.
It's really your 30s that you start to notice the effects of the decisions everybody has made. And when you're young, everybody's young, everybody has an insane metabolism, everybody bounces back from everything. Like nobody has a career, nobody has money, everybody's on a level playing field. But once you get into your 30s, especially your mid and late 30s, you start to see the accumulation of everybody's choices. It starts to become very difficult to ignore how one person's life has turned out versus another's. And this can be a very difficult thing to look at within yourself. It can be a very unpleasant and uncomfortable thing to look at within yourself, because if you fucked around or if you made some bad choices early on, those things can compound and become very apparent at this point. But that doesn't mean it's too late to change. The most expensive thing in your 30s is not money, it's time. See, once you get to this age, you start appreciating how precious every hour of every day is. I mean, actually paying attention to what is adding value to your life and then being ruthless about editing out everything that doesn't.
Man, that's good. And that's so true. I mean, you can talk about this on a financial standpoint, on a maybe like just a family standpoint, a health standpoint. I mean, I can compare myself to peers that I know that have focused much more on their health throughout their 20s and 30s versus myself, and I look at it and that's one thing I struggle with, right? I wish I would have focused more on my fitness than I did, which again, like he also said, it's never too late. So I'm trying to fix that. It's just, it would have been so much easier to stay on that healthy, fit path throughout my 20s and 30s and not have kind of not focused as much as I should have on that. That's a tough one to think about with yourself. It's because like you know what you messed up on, you know what you could have done better, but it's like here I am now I just gotta face it. I just gotta take it, and I gotta either choose to go one of two ways: fix it, change it, or stay on the same path I've been on for the past 15 years.
What advice would you give to someone like me that's my age, or maybe even younger, mid-20s, as to how to play the game over the coming years to make sure that I don't find myself in a position where I'm having to work 2 jobs, I'm poor, I don't have assets, I don't have anything to show for it?
The first part of the game is income. Without income, you don't have the cash to do the other things, to invest or to look for opportunities. So first thing is income. But even that's changing in how we earn incomes these days. It used to be you go and work for a big firm, you get paid, you get the benefit. That's all going and nobody wants to do it. So you kind of end up having to be an entrepreneur, work 2 or 3 different things. The point being, if you're 20s, do all of that. Work day and night.
Really?
Do as many things, learn as much as you can, fail as often as possible.
What about work-life balance in your 20s?
Fuck it. Because that's the time to put in the hard work. Your work-life balance actually comes out later. I'm a big believer in, yes, if you're straight out of university, go traveling for a year or 2. That A, gets rid of the pent-up need, but also gives you a much broader perspective on the world than any other single thing that you can do in your life. After that, you get your head down, and you get your head down probably till your mid-30s.
I think being able to set yourself aside from where you grew up at and go out and explore the world, like he mentioned, with being able to take a year or 2 off after high school or after college and go explore the world, go live your life, go experience different cultures, different foods, different people. You really, really do get a respect for what's out there instead of just being kind of like stuck in your bubble at home. You learn a lot. You see a lot. You see how different people live and how they look at different things, how they live differently, how they handle certain situations. It's a really, really cool thing to be able to get out there and witness that and just to experience life in the world that we live on. It's pretty cool. I'm glad he said that. That's awesome.
I'm 34 now, but nobody warns you about your 30s. They tell you when it's life finally makes sense, but I think it's when life doesn't make sense at all. It's actually the decade where everything you ignored comes back to introduce itself properly. Your 30s feel like a, second puberty, but this time you're conscious. You start questioning everything you built in your 20s, your job, your relationships, your habits, your friendships, your identity. In your 20s, you were guessing, you were copying, performing, trying to fit in, trying to impress people who don't even remember you today. You weren't living, you were rehearsing. But in your 30s, you finally wake up in the middle of a performance and realize none of this feels like me anymore. Your body changes, your priorities change, your tolerance changes, your standards change. So much changes. You don't chase excitement anymore, you chase peace. You don't want attention, you want alignment. You don't want people, you want presence. So, your 30s force you into an identity audit almost. Everything you used to escape becomes something you now want to understand. And everything you ignored in yourself becomes impossible to avoid or ignore anymore. And everything you tolerated becomes almost embarrassing to admit. You start asking deeper questions like, who am I without the mask? Is this the life, is this the life I chose for myself, or did I copy someone else's? Do I actually want this, or did my 25-year-old self want it? It's uncomfortable, it's confusing, it's isolating, it's humbling. But here's the difference between this and teenage puberty. Back then, you were becoming who the world wanted you to become. Now you're becoming who you want to become. This time you're self-aware. This time you're intentional. This time you feel every shift, every loss, every realization. And this time the stakes feel higher because your 30s aren't about growing up. They're about waking up to your truth, to your patterns, to your values, to your real self. It's messy. It's painful. It's disorienting, but it's the first time in your life you're not guessing and you're choosing.
I wish I could talk that good. That was pretty good. That clip was pretty awesome. That guy was spot on. I like the puberty aspect he mentioned there. Like in your 20s or like in your late teens, you're rehearsing. You don't really know what you want. You don't really know what you're doing. You don't really know what you're striving for. You're just kind of going through the motions. In your 30s, you feel it all. You know what you want. You know what you need to do. It's just it's executing it. Oh, that was good.
This is about advice for people in their 30s. Every stage of life has different things that are important. And then how you approach them at that stage of life is important. The 30s is, hey, now it's getting serious, okay? You went to school, you learned, you came out of school. Yeah, the 20s is a blast, okay? You're making the transition into a job. In the 30s, okay, now work and then family traditionally starts to get serious. So you're really starting to deal with work-life balance issues, and you're not going to have enough time. And how do you approach those years? There's nothing more important in your life than who you choose to have as your life partner. And then there's the possibility of kids. And so there's kids, life partner, and work. And how you approach those things are the most important decisions that you're going to make. And it's going to be stressful. And you're at a stage in your life where you're going to have to start to take care of your kids and your work and perhaps your parents who have not yet passed along, and then they might be going through their difficult time. I recommend you meditate, okay? Whenever you have stress, calm yourself down, get the equanimity that meditation can give you through this. And then I recommend that you realize that you can have everything you want, but you can't have everything you want. And so you're going to have to start to prioritize these items, making the most important things most important. But beyond that, also seek the advice of others, like in every phase in life. There have been lots of people who have been through this before, and so they can give you the advice that you need in order to face your trade-offs. So I think if you think that through, you get good advice, and you face those challenges well, you'll make the most of that probably most challenging decade of your life.
You can't have it all, folks. I think that's something that I've come to, accept. In my 20s, sometimes I would think about, man, I want this, I want all that, I want I want all the fancy items, I want this type of lifestyle. But when I really settled myself down and I realized what I want, what's most important to me, and that's spending time with my wife and my kids. And once I figured that out, there's this sense of peace that comes over you. Now you're still wandering around like a lost puppy, what am I doing in this life right now still? But you at least have a little bit of a roadmap, right? You at least kind of a little bit understand what you want out of life, but it's still, are you taking the correct path to get there? Yeah. Your 30s are weird.